Good evening, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to Hip Hop Citizen. This is our live stream discussion on Sunday special report. My name is Diva Views. Thank you for tuning in. Welcome or welcome back. We appreciate you spending your Sunday evening with us discussing topics that are hip hop adjacent. And tonight we'll be diving into cancel culture. Now, I'm sure you've seen many a think piece or video ad nauseum talking about it because it is all the rage. But we're going to be discussing it with our views and opinions, different viewpoints, how it affects the hip hop community, as far as people coming for you when they feel you are getting out of pocket. So definitely stay tuned, share the stream. You can find us on all streaming platforms. Right now, we were on Twitch, Facebook, YouTube, Periscope. You can follow Hip Hop Citizen on all platforms, including Instagram and Twitter. You can find me at It's Diva Views on Instagram and Diva Views Citizen on Facebook. So thank you for tuning in. I will let everybody get inside here for a second, and we'll start right off discussing what cancel culture is, how it affects us, and how it may be coming for you next. So thank you for tuning in. Let's get started with what cancel culture dates back to, because believe it or not, cancel culture dates all the way back to ancient times. This is not some new thing that came along with the interwebs or social media, or what the kids on my lawn are looking at these days. Cancel culture has always been with us. And when I was doing my research for this topic, it turned out to be very interesting to see that it has a different name in different iterations all the way back to ancient times. Definitely this meme that I found is funny, like cancel culture people be like the recess commercial cartoon where they're waiting with a pad and a pen waiting for you to trip up so they can decide whether or not you need to still exist or not. Cancel culture dates all the way back to ancient times because when you think about it, if you know anything about Egyptian archaeology, going back to the 18th dynasty, I'm going to take you on a little archaeological dig here. Pharaoh Akhenaten and Queen Nefertiti introduced a monotheistic religion to Egypt in the 18th dynasty in the Amarna period. And what they did was make themselves the living gods, the ones who were representative of their god at the time that they wanted to represent. And so when they did this, they were totally taking people out of what they had already known for centuries, millennia almost, for their polytheistic religion. Well, just 50 years after his death, because guess what? A living god died. Nefertiti went first, and Akhenaten followed. People went back to the old religion, dropped his, declared him a heretic, and physically erased his name and cartouche from the walls and statues of the buildings in Amarna. They abandoned Amarna, went back to the original capital, and physically like chiseled out his name from royal lists, from buildings, everything like that. You were physically erased. Same thing happened with Egyptian pharaoh Hatshepsut in the same dynasty when she was ruling after Tutmos III's reign. It's not clear what happened after he took over, but for some reason she had a reign that was, notable. And when he came along, what they're thinking is that in a tradition that usually happened when the next guy comes on, he wanted to erase all notion of her as a pharaoh that had been ruling, wanted to put his name in there to get the laws and accolades. And he took any sculptures, any structures that she had built, demolished them, erased her cartouche, erased her name. So you get physically erased even in that time period. And the next person I found that I was familiar with, because like I said, I'm into research and doing things like that, was Commodus. Commodus was the son of Marcus Aurelius in the Roman era, and he served as emperor from 176 to 192 CE. And when he was assassinated in 192, after he was assassinated, his name went through a process called damnation memoriae, where he was erased from memory. And what that meant was pretty much the same thing. They took down all his statues. This is a picture of a bust that was like one of the last ones that they were able to find that was still intact because people were chiseling off his nose, erasing his features. They chiseled off the names from the structures that he had built, tore them all down. Like they wanted you eradicated and they wanted your memory tarnished, when in ancient times they didn't want to consider you someone worthy of remembering. And those things have been with us for a long time. Hey, honey child, I see you tuning in right on time. So these kind of things make sure that we don't think of it as a new phenomenon. It's just new to us in the form that it's in now. But cancel culture has always been with us, and in some way, shape, or form, repercussions, consequences, backlash, That's what people have been dealing with for a while. It's just that we're seeing it in this new and strange way. And with the advent of social media and the speed of information technology, you can know 5 minutes, so you can get on a plane and think you're fine, get off and be fired. We've seen that happen before too. But what it comes down to also is whether or not someone is offended or sensitive. And I've said this before on the show because it took me to one tweet that I found that I thought was really interesting. And it mentioned that you don't have to, be someone who's overly sensitive in order to want to stand up for something that you think someone else should take consideration of. But this one tweet was interesting to me because this person, Upper Echelon Gaming, noted that no lie, if I ever get seriously canceled, I am just going to talk a massive amount of shit and refuse to apologize. Not because I'm unwilling to accept fault or will refuse to inwardly reflect, but because I will not accept cancel culture as a dominant force in my life. But see, here's the thing. You have to take into consideration that the reason that people may be coming at you and trying to correct any type of behavior or let you know that something was amiss is because it seemed disrespectful to either one marginalized group or another. And I've said this before on the show. I think we were talking about media literacy or another topic, earlier on. We do have them in the archive, so check them out on YouTube or Facebook. But opinions matter. So here's the thing. They should never be disrespected and disrespect should not be tolerated. So just because you don't like what you're hearing, you don't rail against the person, you go in on the issue. And especially now with opinions being challenged and monitored, and the inference being that, they speak to a person's thinking and possible behavior and decision making on a matter. So that's why people pay attention to everyone's opinions these days, because that person's opinion could affect another person's life, either positively or negatively. And that's when a person's opinion turns into a belief or a point of view. And James Baldwin said it perfectly, and I'm going to read it so I get it right. We can disagree and still love each other unless your disagreement is rooted in my oppression and denial of my humanity and right to exist. Because to me, like, I'm the diva and these are my views, it's one thing to say, I don't like Hawaiian pizza, or I would be hyperbolic and say Hawaiian pizza is an abomination to the Lord. It's another to say same-sex couples should not be able to adopt. It's another to say, someone doesn't have the right to their own reproductive decisions. You should be able to defend your stance if you have it, but also be open to learning about your stance and why others may disagree. Because that right to free speech, it is not the right to have your unfiltered thoughts published without critique or challenge. No challenge should come from them. And it also doesn't mean freedom from consequences, whatever they may be. Either maybe somebody's not your friend anymore or you lose your job. You can say whatever you want to a degree, but there's a reason why, as a society, which I'm going to get into later, there are some things that the consensus is just saying, no, that's not okay. But there are 5 reasons that I found in psychologytoday.com. They are a magazine, well established. They have peer review studies, and they're also considered just a regular magazine that the public can pick up and use. 5 reasons why people love cancel culture. So number 1, they're saying cancel culture increases social status. Number 2, cancel culture reduces the social status of enemies. 3, cancel culture strengthens social bonds. It forces enemies to reveal themselves, and cancel culture produces fast rewards. And I thought that was interesting. We're not going to break down the whole article. Like I said, that was in Psychology Today for their blog, if you want to look it up for yourselves. And it's just a listicle article. They had 5 reasons why people love cancel culture. And I think it was from a 2019 December edition that I found. All those things seem to be the main points of why people are into cancel culture as a quick, easy, solution to getting somebody to know they're wrong and right their wrong. They want it to be clean and easy and quick, and sometimes that's not always the case. It's not easy to be clean and easy and quick dealing with something that can be so complex when you are trying to make a correction on somebody who is another sentient, knowledgeable adult. So those are the things you want to keep in mind when you're looking at why people are so into it. And I'd like the idea that they said it produces fast rewards. Like, I don't know what they would consider a reward, but here's some things that we can note right away, because of course we're going to get into the examples of where cancel culture is right now and what it does to people. Because that's the other big thing that people are having an issue with. Like, what is the aftermath? What does it mean when the mob comes for you? Are you like the person in the tweet who is just going to say, I'm going to stand 10 toes down and not ever apologize because I said what I said? Or do you need to consider why 1.5 million people don't like what you said? Maybe it should, take a second glance. Let's talk about boycotting products and canceling people, or vice versa. Boycotting people and canceling products. Of course, the idea behind that is, if you follow a boycott to its logical end, that it's the point of either supporting celebrities or businesses who need your dollar and align with your morals. So it makes that person or entity now a social status. You want to make sure that if you're going to support that product or support that person, that you kind of like are in the same wheelhouse and kind of think the same. Now, of course, notwithstanding Hobby Lobby, corporations are not people. They don't think, and they shouldn't have opinions. But people these days, especially, who are conscious more of what a corporation can do in the greater scheme of things in people's lives, want those corporations, those entities, those celebrities and people to have some kind of social consciousness, to understand the impact they may be having on people's everyday lives. Now, your dollars are a great resource to make sure that happens, but then cancel culture can be a great resource to determine how you should move as a consumer. So let's take some things, for example, like boycotting harmful products. Absolutely. If you find out with proof you found glass in some Gerber applesauce, you found out that, Crest uses plastic in the toothpaste, or, the Teflon pans that you adore, well, the factory where they're made releases their chemical into the rivers that go downstream to a daycare center. Of course, you respond through all the normal channels. You complain to the company, you talk to customer service, you alert the media, you follow all those steps. The boycott is where you're really trying to get them where it is a pain point. I won't say hurts, but it's a pain point. And especially with corporations, you want to do that with money. So that's what boycotts are. And of course, boycotts are effective. The first one that pops to mind is the bus boycott that was put on in order to kickstart the civil rights movement. That was a pain point because it hurt money, it hurt the routes, it hurt the drivers. And when that trickled down and they finally had to admit that that was a pain point, then that's when change came. Well, that's what people are trying to do on down the years to assert their power as a consumer. Because when you realize that you have some sort of power, you should wield it in a way that's for good. Not sure that everybody thinks that way about it, because like I said, those 5 points, it forces enemies to reveal themselves, but they produce fast rewards. Are those rewards for the greater good, or is it just to get you a hit of dopamine to feel good that you feel like you did something? So that's something to consider as well. If you're just tuning in, thank you so much for coming in and joining the conversation. We're discussing cancel culture tonight on Hiphopcitizen live stream. This is the Sunday special report, and I'm Diva Views. We hope that you'll share the stream if you know somebody that would like to participate in the discussion. Give us a like, share, follow, and subscribe. We're also going to talk about canceling people based on supposition or assumptions or conjecture. That's not so clean to do. So canceling people, the whole way that started is because people, like I said, wanted to look at how their favorite celebrity or their favorite person aligned with their morals, their standing, their sense of social consciousness. And like the Black Panther meme, we have up right here, all the things that we're used to are turned on its head when it comes to cancel culture, because you're innocent until proven guilty. Accusations with clear, cutting evidence and proof, looking into other sides of the argument, unbiased opinion, taking into account how long ago it happened. Cancel culture, no, we don't do that here. It's instant, it is fast, it is sweeping, it is scorched earth policy when it comes to cancel culture. And you would be surprised how it moves as one. It's a hive mind, and that's what people don't like about it. But what you need to keep in mind is that canceling people based on the idea or the inference that you made, or just anything that's not based solidly in what you investigated yourself or what you came to understand for a fact, is where we get the idea that it's harmful. And that's what people who are establishing a canceling cancel culture, establishing a backlash for cancel culture, don't appreciate. There's no nuance. There's no context. A perfect example that I can come up with that I made sure to write down was the idea that I'm sure everyone knows Hamilton, the musical. I was total Hamill trash. Now I'm a Hamill fan, but I was completely obsessed with this play when it came out. And now that it's on streaming on Disney Plus, of course, I've watched it 2 or 3 times already. Was in love with it, in love with the music, because I could take it at face value, detach myself from all the historical inaccuracies, the deepness of the people who were being portrayed, and just enjoy the music, the genius of the writer, and get on with my day. Well, now, of course, 4 years on, this thing came out in 2015, 2016. It entered the Richard Rodgers Theater and was on Broadway. Only 4 years later, it's a completely different world, and people absolutely want to cancel Hamilton. It was groundbreaking. It was based in hip hop and rap. It was people of color portraying the founding fathers. It was new. It was fresh. But there were still people at the time who were upset with the portrayals, upset with the lack of details that were accurate, and people were heard, but it was still growing in popularity, and it became a movement unto itself. Well, now that it's streaming and everyone's had a chance to see it 4 years on, here we are dealing with cancel Hamilton as the hashtag. Now, Lin-Manuel Miranda has made it clear that, of course, he only had 2 hours and 46 minutes to hold your attention in a play. Sitting down, looking at a stage full of other people in a theater may not be anybody else's idea of fun. I adored it. But he only had a certain amount of time to work with. He is a writer. He was he didn't work on the sets, of course. I don't know why I was about to say that. He was the writer. He was writing the music. He was acting in it. And there are some things that he had to leave out. He left out the idea that Hamilton, while also acting as an abolitionist, working with his friend John Lawrence, did help his family that he married into, the Schuylers, buy and trade slaves. He made his living in Nevis and St. Kitts working for a trading company that dealt with slaves. He absolutely did. George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, those people that are portrayed in the play were slave owners. That's where the founding fathers are flawed as human beings. He took that story and saw it as an immigrant's tale from his perspective and his point of view as a son of Puerto Rico, and that's what he wanted to tell, a story of someone who came from nothing as he saw it and pulled themselves up to become something in a founding father and establisher of the Federal Reserve. He is not closing the play as some people are demanding he does, because at this point now people are just mad. They're mad that there wasn't portrayal of the atrocities suffered by Native Americans at the founding of this country, that slaves weren't included in the narrative except for brief mentions, and he was not a pure abolitionist. People want it to completely go away. They've wanted it to go away since it opened, but he's not closing it. It was sold to Disney. He's made his millions. So now what? Now what can you really do? What good would it do to try and cancel him now? Like what would that do? What lesson are you trying to teach when you want to cancel someone? What message are you trying to get through to them? Are you actually trying to teach them something? Is there some message you want them to get? Are you trying to reach them? Or are you just trying to erase them from history, like has happened before in the past? When it comes to boycotts, everything's been boycotted because somebody on some side was mad. Remember Keurig? When everybody was like filming themselves destroying their Keurigs, I think because that company stopped running commercials on the Tucker Carlson show on Fox News. So because they decided they were going to pull out their sponsorship from Tucker Carlson, his fan base filmed themselves destroying product they had already bought. Okay, same thing with Nike. When Nike decided they were going to sign on an exclusive deal with Colin Kaepernick after the controversy that he was in and make him the face of his own campaign, oh my goodness, people were like snipping the tops off their Nike socks. They were like burning their jerseys. They were burning his jersey. They were like ripping up their golf shoes, everything like that. This is what cancel culture does. Just like we were saying in the meme, you get those accusations. You get people not taking things into account and looking at the context. Like, they already have your money. Why are you destroying it? But see, then we come to the other side of it, such as the recent boycott that's going on with Goya Food Products. Now, the president of Goya Food Products, which is a Hispanic centered food company, he went to an event at the White House and praised President Trump. Now, the reason that Latinx and Hispanic communities have a problem with President Trump is obvious, his policies and his rhetoric. But here is this, conservative Hispanic food owner saying that he appreciates Trump being president. Well, of course, that didn't sit well with that community, who is his main buyer. They started again filming themselves throwing products out, dumping it out. They're not buying it anymore. So the counter protest to that, of course, was the conservatives got behind him and started buying in bulk Goya products. They were buying like pallets of black beans, probably never eaten a black bean in their life. And they're trying to show, well, you're not going to cancel him. We're just going to buy everything and support his dollars. Ivanka Trump posed with a can of Goya beans. I was done. First of all, that's like an ethical issue, and she is being investigated for that because you're not supposed to do that rule wise. But it was just kind of like, really? And that's a boycott that's going on because people are not happy with the expression of his opinion for the president that he was supporting. And the event that he was at, where he said those words, was a signing of a bill that was giving funds to support programs that were going to give back to Hispanic communities. But because that community that he was trying to help felt some kind of way that it was coming from someone that had disparaged them so regularly, of course, they felt it disingenuous and expressed themselves through this organized boycott. Now, the other side of the coin is Shea Moisture. Now, of course, I'm natural. Natural hair community is strong and wide, and Black women take their hair very seriously. Shea Moisture was one of the first to actually be a natural hair community that dealt with hair that was not chemically treated in terms of relaxers and perms. Well, when the natural hair community found out that Shea Moisture had been sold to a larger company that was no longer going to be Black owned and Black supported, they were livid. They were getting rid of the products. They didn't want to hear from them anymore. I think some formulations changed because they decided they wanted their products to appeal to all hair types, read all hair types. And so people were upset about that. We can't have nothing. This is supposed to be for our hair. So that boycott started as well. And it never quite recovered. People still kind of give Shea Moisture the side eye. Now, personally, if it works for your hair, it works for your hair. But there are some times when you want to take a stance and speak with your dollars, and your dollars should speak. And that's what boycotts are for. They're to make a point that that company, as a member of society working in a capitalist system regardless, has an impact on the society they're in. Their customers are important, and they should remember their customer base and maybe act a little loyal to them. That's what people are looking for these days. And those type of products, they should take that into consideration. But here's where it gets malicious. And I don't know if any of you remember the cancellation that tried to take place before the pandemic even started. So in March, people tried to cancel Honey Pot feminine products. Now, this was a commercial that was airing a little bit after Black History Month, and I think it was because Target was still running the ad after Black History Month that it was considered in March. So the sister founded a company where she wanted to produce her own all-natural, vegan, cruelty-free feminine products. She minority owned, Black women owned, and she filmed a commercial with Target where she said in the commercial, now listen to this, she said, I want to be an inspiration to other Black little girls who see me and decide that they can do the same thing that I did. That's the gist of what she said. So here come people upset that she said that specifically, that she spoke to Black little girls, decided that she was racist, and went to a website called Trusted Pilot that you can use product reviews on, and decided to like spam and like DDoS that site in order to give her a 1-star review for the fact that they didn't like that she said she wanted to be an inspiration for Black little girls to look up to. They think she should have said all little girls. So because they started to do that, they started flooding all these ratings pages with 1-star reviews and complaints. Well, it turns out that because everybody peeped game, they went in, that did the same thing as with what's going on with Goya, bought everything. I know I couldn't find anything in Target for weeks before, the beverage started and we all had to stay home, because they were not going to let this happen to this sister. They were not going to let the backlash be based on your feelings. You were not going to make her feel bad because you didn't like that she said she wanted to inspire little Black girls. So that started because she specifically wanted to be an inspiration, and then she turned around and was getting backlash because of that specific, she was specific in what she said. That kind of thing is what happens with small business owners. And she was a small business. Just because she's in Target doesn't mean she was running a multi-million dollar company at the time, but her sales did increase 200% because of the publicity that she received from their hater efforts. Now, I do want to go and pivot to an article that I found on NPR.com. They have a segment called Code Switch that's based on racial inequities and the people who deal with them on a regular basis. And in Code Switch, they were talking about a boycott that was taking place to a small business owner. And the reason this intrigued me is because it was local to Minneapolis, Minnesota. It was happening to an Arab Muslim in that area who was running a grocery store called Holy Land. And I look at the screen because I have notes, so if anybody's wondering about that, I like to make sure I'm getting my words correct. So his name is Majdi Wadi. I'm sure someone can correct me if I'm pronouncing it incorrectly. And he's the CEO of the Holy Land brand. It's a family-owned grocery store, restaurant, and hummus factory. Love hummus. Well, apparently, this is how it kicks off. This is how cancel culture kicks off. So his daughter, it was discovered, Leanne, days after George Floyd was killed, it was discovered that she had written anti-Black, anti-Semitic, and anti-gay social media posts from 2012 to 2016. And of course, they resurfaced. Twitter has done nobody any good so far that I can remember. Of course, the backlash was swift. Wadi had to fire his daughter because it was family-owned business. But the thing is, these tweets took place when she was 15. She was a teenager. She was in school. From the research that I did, it was saying that she apologized, of course. She had to be let go. They lost lucrative contracts. People immediately dropped them. Once you lose business like that, though, that's the trickle down. And that's why when it comes to small businesses, we want to be careful where we do want to just absolutely obliterate and scorched earth these people, because he did end up having to shut down certain factories, which meant people lost their jobs. There were layoffs, and there was even one location where they were evicted. The landlord just didn't want to continue their lease because of these posts that his daughter posted when she was in high school. It was, stupid messages that I won't repeat here. She thought she was being cool, was her explanation, because of course I looked up what she thought her excuse was. She was 15, she was trying to fit in, everybody was saying the same thing. She's not the same person anymore, which is true, you grow and change, but those things were still there. And the general public are not privy to her day-to-day behavior. They don't know if she's, changed or expressed any remorse. And so this is the backlash that came down on the family business because of her decisions and what she wrote and made part of the internet. Now, what do we all remember? The internet is written in ink. There is a thing called the Wayback Machine that archives tweets. You can go back to the beginning of Twitter and find the stupid stuff that people wrote 10 years from now and try to cancel them for it. Those are the things we need to look at. Guys, if you want to participate in this discussion, we do have a call-in link. This is a live stream show. You are listening live. Let's do the housekeeping notes. This is Sunday Special Report on Hiphopcitizen. I am Diva Views. I'm the Diva, and these are my views. And we're talking about specific topics that are hip-hop adjacent, where they may be affecting the community or our citizens. These are topics that we're interested in and we want to hear from you. So click on the link if you'd like to participate, or make sure that you're respectfully discussing it with each other in the chats that we have available on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and anywhere else you have a streaming platform. We hope that you'll like, share, and subscribe. The Code Switch article was interesting to me because then, of course, after you receive the cancellation, you want to take care of the damage control. So, of course, this gentleman, Majdi Wadi, came through and said that he wanted to make amends to the community. He wanted to reach out. He wanted to build bridges, all the usual things that people are saying. And he reached out to a local Black Muslim imam to talk to him about what he could do. And what the Black imam said was, well, it's going to take time, it's going to take concerted effort, and let's face it, it's going to take money. People want you to put your money where your mouth is. How about you set up a foundation? How about you cut us a check that we can use to support these programs that we use in our community? Well, apparently he didn't like that idea, because the Holy Land's business owner not only not follow that advice, he went to his imam And they decided they were going to form their own Arab Business Owners Coalition to put together their own charitable foundation. Where that money is going to go, no one has been able to find out. And they decided they were going to take it into their hands to try to mend the relationship with the community they offended. But they were going to do it on their own terms, their own way. If you ask for help, you should be willing to take that help the way they suggested. It's not always going to be palatable. It's not always going to be easy. That's what makes it work, and that's what makes it effective. And for some reason, he didn't want to keep that in mind. But one thing that he did say struck me, and I think it's a good point to keep in mind overall when it comes to cancel culture. He said, because you did something wrong in the past does not mean you cannot advocate against it now. That doesn't make you a hypocrite. You just grew. Is there any room for growth in cancel culture? Is there any room for the people that you're trying to cancel to maybe come back? Is there room for them to still be in society, or do they have to be chiseled away and erased just like in ancient times? One person that you wouldn't think would be against cancel culture and what actually doesn't enjoy it either is Barack Obama. Because you can keep in mind that people were trying to cancel him from the day they met him and saw him. But one thing that happened was that Obama was speaking at a Obama Foundation event in Chicago, and this was a highly publicized event, and Rolling Stone covered it in an article that they had because he specifically called out cancel culture, it's image 6, and activism. Now, while he was speaking at this event, I'm going to go through what the article wrote. Like I said, it's Rolling Stone in their politics section. And he was saying, while speaking at an Obama Foundation event, the former president sounded off over what he perceives to be a desire among young people to prove how woke they are by judging others online. So he was saying this idea of purity and that you're never compromised and you're always politically woke, you should get over that quickly, he said. The world is messy. There are ambiguities. People who really do good stuff have flaws. And he continued, the ties to activism, he gets the sense that now among certain young people, it's accelerated by social media. Like we were saying before, social media will, get it around the world in 5 minutes flat. But there's this sense that sometimes making change means to be as judgmental as possible about other people, and that's enough. And that if I tweet or hashtag about something that you didn't do right, or that you used the wrong verb, or there instead of there, that I could sit back and feel good about myself now. Did you see how woke I was? I called you out. Then I'm going to get on my TV and watch my show. That's not activism, he said. That's not bringing about change. If all you're doing is casting stones, you're probably not going to get that far. And he is making a lot of good points now. He got backlash for even making this statement. What a surprise. He got backlash for mentioning cancel culture because you can see in this meme, that's what it looks like to people. It looks like the pitchforks and torches coming for you on social media because, like I said, you use there instead of there, THEIR. And he was making the point that you shouldn't consider that just because you called somebody out in a tweet or had an argument in a Facebook thread that now you've done your part to move along a cause that's part of a movement. That's not what cancel culture is for. That's not activism. Activism is making those phone calls, signing those petitions, being in a lane that helps in a constructive way and not a destructive way. And for people to consider that maybe just judging someone from the comfort of your home is considered activism, that's not what that is. So he was looking at the nuance of it. Like he said, life is messy. There's ambiguities. There's gray areas that you need to consider. And things are not always black and white. But you know what? This is not the first time that we've dealt with this in America in the modern age. Because if anyone's old enough to remember, and I'm going to date myself, or has studied any type of U.S. history, you remember in the mid 20th century, we had McCarthyism. Now, McCarthyism is named for Joseph McCarthy because in the hyper-suspicious atmosphere of the Cold War that was between the U.S. and Russia in the 50s, after the Second World War in the 50s, early 60s, there were insinuations of disloyalty. If you was even a hint that you may have been a sympathizer with Russia, or you could had communist values, if you thought in some way, shape, or form that communism was a good idea. And it was that little bit of a seed of doubt that was enough to convince the majority of Americans at that time, that their government was packed with communists, traitors, and spies. And McCarthy, who was a freshman senator at the time and just happened to be on this House committee that was dealing with the idea, the insinuation that communism was infiltrating, his accusations were so intimidating at the time that there were few people that dared to speak against him. And it particularly infiltrated Hollywood, arts, humanities, any kind of person who was considered outside of the norm in his estimation. So I definitely remember reading about that. And McCarthyism was considered the Red Scare. It was this wave of terror that went through people, that if you were called up to be on the committee and didn't name 3 names of other people that you consider to be communist sympathizers, you could be fired, you could be blacklisted, you could be next. Actually, he died in obscurity because eventually he went too far and went after people in the army. Once he started going after people in the army, they put a stop to him. It was all good when he was pointing the finger outward, but once he started pointing the finger inward, oh, they got him. He was taken off the committee. I don't believe he won his re-election bid, and I don't read anything else about him happening in a political arena that was as influential as that Red Scare that he initiated. So in that kind of thing, cancel culture, to a degree, works. Let's look at it this way. There are 2 reactions. You want that person to either own up to their mistakes and change, or you get a second chance, or you're just a horrible person and that's it. Like, it's those 2 things. But just like Obama was alluding to when he was discussing it, is it ever that simple? Is there room for growth and change, or will you always be the sum of your worst mistakes? That's what people are looking at now. That's what I think of when I think of you need to consider context and nuance. What have you seen this person do? How do they move? That's what you pay attention to, because people can say anything to you. What does their behavior look like? What about your past conversations with them? What does that look like to you? But like I said earlier in the discussion, we're going to establish why other people's opinions may matter so much, why in a society how individuals move make a difference. Well, we should have established societal mores and values and morals that are okay and not okay. I mean, it really is that simple when you're living in a community. How they're enforced is another idea, but they're enforced on a basic level, like I'm saying, on a basic level. We express our displeasure with a certain behavior that could threaten communal ties. So we express our displeasure in various ways. We can't get into ancient times and cavemen and things like that. That's really going back way too far. But it can be as simple as just ignoring that person. It can be as simple as maybe kicking that person out the village. It can be as simple as just letting that person know, hey, you know what? That wasn't okay. Like, out of the 8 of us, 6 of us are not okay with what you did. And that's the majority, so bye. That's how people see it. So let's define mores in society in this context, speaking about what may be all right in the community you're living in, the society you choose to be a part of. So mores, spelled M-O-R-E-S, and pronounced more, they are social norms that are widely observed within a particular society or culture. Now, mores determine what is considered morally acceptable or unacceptable within a given culture. Now, William Graham Sumner, an early U.S. sociologist, introduced both the terms mores and folkways into modern sociology. So this is a sociological thing. Mores are often dictated by a society's values, ethics, and sometimes religious influences. Some more examples include it isn't considered acceptable to, go 90 miles an hour in a residential area. It's not considered acceptable to, do heroin in general. But those terms come up because we want to establish, like, this is what a society is. This is where we get our value systems from. And if we're going to live together and make it work, we all have to agree that this is not okay. Those big, wide, big overarching rules are not okay. Whether you believe that's the 10 Commandments, whether you believe that you have basic ethics, those are the things that everybody's agreed on. But when the mob is coming for you, what is the mob looking to do? What is the mob looking for when they're canceling? When they're coming for you, what is it that they want you to do? because they're coming for you for a reason. Sometimes. Uh, what the mob usually is trying to do, and in my research, I found three things that are mostly the most impactful. What they're trying to do is either take away someone's power and call out the individual for being problematic in a situation. They're looking for a remorseful apology, acknowledging actions or words and the impact that they had, and then they want to see a change of behavior going forward. They want that person or entity or corporation to show that they are different now. So those are the basic things that people are looking for when they're looking to cancel, when they're looking to censure, when they're looking to just like shun or do anything like that. They're trying to say, look, we are doing this because you've displayed a behavior that's not okay in general, and we want you to stop it. And if you don't stop it, these will be the consequences. Those are the basics. We'd love for you to call in if you have any opinions thus far about the topic we're discussing, which is cancel culture. This is Hiphopcitizen live stream Sunday special report. I'm Diva Views, and we would love for you to stay tuned, call in, share the stream, like, follow, and subscribe on all social media platforms. We are running live right now on Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook. And if you're watching the replay, welcome or welcome back. Thank you so much for checking us out, and we hope you'll continue to do so. Now, an actress that I love, I mentioned earlier that I love Hamilton, and this is the actress that played Eliza in Hamilton, Philippa Sue. This is a quote attributed to her, and I loved it because she said, "If you are canceled, but not wish to be, you must work to earn back people's respect by owning up to the thing that canceled you in the first place, listening to others, educating yourself, and advocating on behalf of the people that you have offended or harmed." And I felt like this was a really nuanced rendering, but what I found was even more on point, and I think I agreed with even more, was this tweet that I found in my research. And the image read, "If you gain joy in destroying someone's career for a minuscule mistake, you need to figure what's at work in you where being destructive makes you feel powerful." And people are seeing that that's what it's coming down to for people lately. Like those 5 things we mentioned in the Psychology Today article that people feel is reward from cancel culture. What is it about cancel culture that you're doing where you think all you have to do is, cuss somebody out on Twitter and you've done your part? There needs to be a little more nuance to that. And so I think Philippa's quote, which is attributed to her, I thought that made more sense. That what you're really wanting is for people to own up to the thing that they did, to respectfully educate themselves and listen and figure out, why it got to that point. One other article that I found that really had a lot of good points was specific about an incident that happened with the rap collective Brockhampton, and it was in djbooth.net. It was a great feature, and I took some information from that article as well when I was working on my show a couple of weeks ago. And one thing she mentioned was that if you forgive, you're not co-signing the misconduct. Forgiving is rewarding the type of behavior you would like to see in these situations going forward. So you want an apology, a statement, swift and decisive action, a direct address in the forum you are known for, and you want it to be addressed publicly if it happened publicly, for sure, and privately if you feel like there's more that you want to say to whoever you dealt with. Music, art, politics. The process of canceling is only as effective as the subsequent steps. We must reward that behavior if we want to see more of it. And I think that this tweet here on the screen, made by Holly Conrad, and she's verified, so I'm going to read it first, and then I'm going to tell you what Holly's story is. She was saying that cancel culture is toxic. The psychological damage that wave after wave of internet hate causes is irreversible for some. Now it's taken a life. Think, please, before you try to ruin people for sport. So Holly Conrad, and of course you see it says this whore, Holly Conrad is a member of the gamer community. And what happened was that she was having an affair with a gamer that was married at the time as well. His wife found out and began to tweet out information about the affair. And so, of course, people took sides, immediately tried to cancel her and cancel everyone involved by expressing their extreme displeasure with the fact that she had participated in the downfall of the marriage of 2 of their favorite gamer people. But what she's speaking to, I believe, is the death of August Ames, and she was an adult film star who had mistakenly had a live that she was speaking on and was challenged in a statement she made about how often STI testing was taking place, how there were certain actors that she didn't want to work with. And August was 23. She was young. She was considered bisexual. And there was another film star that came in. I believe it was a gay film actor that came in with his crowd of people. This was all on Twitter, and started going after her, calling her dumb, telling her, take the pill, we'll wait, basically just pushing and pushing and pushing and berating and berating and berating. Well, August was already in a delicate state. She, took it very hard that people were just coming and coming, like this tweet said, wave after wave after wave of just vitriol from people on the internet that didn't even know her. Hey, Lord Bagel, thanks for tuning in. Eventually, August took her own life, and immediately the person who had initiated the hate campaign against her privated his Twitter, put out a statement that he was sorry. He never meant for her to do this. He didn't know she was in that state of mind. It's hard to take an apology like that genuinely when you see the past behavior. And this is the cycle that ends up happening with cancel culture. You do something bad, the hate comes. Then when you do something drastic, the people who gave you the hate are all of a sudden sorry. So it's sad to see that it has to come to that in some cases, and that some people are, looking to do that. So it's sad that it comes to that point, but that's why we have to ask the question. If we don't forgive, we have to ask ourselves what then qualifies as enough. Will it ever be enough when it comes to cancel culture, when it comes to that mob mentality? Will the mob ever be satisfied? Well, what more could have been done in the wake of the allegation? If the answer is more without definition, then we enter into this space where there is no enough. There is no forgiveness. There is no redemption. And that goes against everything that we stand for as a progressive culture and society, or at least what we think of as a progressive culture and society. Like I said, this article on djbooth.net was really fascinating, the way this author was breaking it down. And I really enjoyed reading it and hearing her points about it. And I'll refer to it again at the end of the discussion. I think that's a really good point, because if you are berating someone, it's to get them to see the issue, understand it for themselves, do some introspection. I had a hard time tonight. Some introspection, some self-reflection, understand your viewpoint, and take it into consideration at the very least. Now, at that point, if they decide they're still standing 10 toes down on what they said, they are firm in their belief and their stance, okay, they've shown you that this is what they believe. They are not to be moved from that point, and that's fine. But what we prefer is for that person to show that they want to have some progress, that they want to learn, that they want to have that growth in order to be that member of general society. Now, if they think that being a nonconformist means I'm going to stand over here on my own, okay, then that you just got to leave them to it. But here's the thing. Canceling someone takes away the option for them to learn from their mistakes, and it kind of alienates them. If you want to cancel someone, like I said, like in ancient times, where you just want their memory erased, chisel them off the wall, throw that person away completely, it really depends on the degree of what they've done and if there is a chance for redemption. Now, of course, in general, we know full well that murderers, child molesters, people who kick puppies, anything like that that is outside of the pale, just, beyond the pale, of course we don't do the redemption and, forgiveness thing there. No, you kick a puppy, get out. But we were talking about infractions of the tongue. We were talking about things that you did do when you were 15, a mistake that can be considered. Maybe you were uninformed, maybe you were underinformed. That's fine. Then maybe you can work with someone, and it all depends on your audience as well, and whether they're willing to work with you to work on those things. Cancel culture has to allow for those things at some point, because if you weaponize something like thought and opinion, there has to be room for recovery from that. And that's what I think people are kind of looking for now. Another article that I found that, referred to this, with a New York Times article about the teenage style of cancel culture, because of course this is something that started. Now, I found two different origin stories of cancel culture. Like I was telling you earlier, it's always been called something since ancient times, but cancel culture in its current form started with social media, and either it started with the drag queen scene with black women, or with teenagers on social media. So one of those three groups is responsible for cancel culture. I don't know if anybody wants to take credit, but that's what I guess the New York Times is trying to say. And they were talking to a few people about their story dealing with cancel culture in their lives. There was a young girl who was in her sophomore year of school that said that she was a victim of it, but she was 15. She did dumb and cringy things. But because of social media, like I said, it's written in ink. There's a Wayback Machine. It's there forever. So she was saying it did have a lasting impact on her. She said, I'm very prone to question everything I do. Is this annoying someone? Is this upsetting someone? She says she has issues trusting perfectly normal things, and that sense of me being some sort of monster or terrible person, a burden to everyone, has stayed with me to some extent. There's still this sort of lingering sense of, what if I am? And that's from her experiencing that as a teenager in those formative years, trying to finish off building your personality and who you'll become. And now you've experienced this societal backlash against something that you did, or your microcosm of society. Another story that was in there was about some young adults who were roommates in college and dealing with this one friend in a friend group that they felt was being overbearing and insensitive to other members of their friend group, or they were expressing opinions that didn't align with the group and how they felt, and it made them uncomfortable the way he was expressing it. So they said that when they let him know and they confronted him about it, he tried to then turn around and justify his actions. He left an apology note, instead of having a sit down with the person who was his roommate and the person who confronted him about his behavior. And the person he confronted said that that set in his mind that he didn't really feel bad about what he did. He just felt bad for himself, and that he would be looked at in a different light. So it's like we always say, like, you're not sorry, you're sorry you got caught. So they were expressing that that's how they felt about his behavior. They were saying that while he appeared sad about losing his friends, even tearing up during the discussion when he finally decided to have a sit down, that he really didn't show remorse. And remorse, if I can colloquially describe it, would be just not the guilt necessarily, but the feeling that you realize the guilt that you have affected someone. Hey, Sherry, thanks for dropping in, girl. Um, you wouldn't want to tolerate that from anyone. And so, because he wasn't showing remorse for the thing he knew he did, he was sorrowful over his actions. They were saying that they just moved on from him. But what happened was that instead of learning from his mistake, he went from sadness from losing his friends to frustration that he felt his side wasn't coming out, to anger. And then eventually that turned into bitterness, because there was still one friend that was feeling bad and wanted to still engage with him on a surface level. She would, of course, it was one of the females. She would smile at him, wave hi in the hallways or things like that. And she said he really did he felt bullied by the rest of the group by this whole cancellation idea. He felt he should not have been shunned by the group because he didn't want to take responsibility for what he said. He felt that he was the one that was misunderstood, and that it was everybody else that should have just given him a break and just accepted how he was, the way he is. And there is a lot that can be said for groupthink. You don't want everybody to think the same, but there's something also to be said for behavior that you're willing to tolerate. And like I said earlier, you should not tolerate being disrespected, and you should not tolerate having to put up with someone else's opinions that in some way denigrate you or degrade others. That is not groupthink. That's just you not wanting to support that. And for this person to then try to flip it and seem like, it was their fault for not wanting to be friends with him anymore. They were young people, like I said in the article. This is the New York Times. It was in their style section, and it was talking about teenage cancel culture. But it was a really good article as well. And I think that spoke a lot to those people coming up as adults, Gen Z, and the ones that are coming up behind them, that are dealing with the idea of social media being the arbiter of what's moral and what's truth in your life, and being the decider in how you're going to act going forward. So it really is tough to think that, as a teenager, you have to deal with what may be happening to you on a job interview 10 years later. Well, did you really say this on Snapchat when you were 12? That's coming. That is absolutely coming for some people, and it's sad to see. I know we had some great images that I found. I'm always finding images for you guys, because when it comes to apologies, forgiveness, redemption, one platitude that I saw was a meme that says, the first to apologize is the bravest, the first to forgive is the strongest, and the first to forget is the happiest. Um, but does that forgiveness have to come at all? And does that forgiveness have to come, in what form? What form does the forgiveness come in? And for me, I know personally, I agree with the idea that it has to come in the form of changed behavior, consistent over a long period of time. And it can't be the person regularly checking in saying, okay, is it okay now? We good now? We cool? Because that just lets you know that they're not trying to change on a personal, psychiatric level. They're trying to change in order to get you to be okay with them overall again. Like I said, I'm the diva. These are my views. But I mean, if you're an adult, that's how you think these days. It's like you've got to be no time to waste. Either you're okay or you're not. And I think that a lot of people can agree that it is not hard to express if you're going to be adult about the situation, or if you've shown us who you are and we need to believe you, as the great Maya Angelou said. When someone shows you who they are the first time, believe them. One thing that has to be said, though, for apologies, forgiveness, that comes on that person's timeline. Like I said, that can't be somebody checking in like, are we okay? Are we good? Are you over it yet? Like that right there, like, okay, then you didn't mean it and you're not trying to change. But one group that has decided that it is up to them to keep watch over the sorries is Sorry Watch. Ladies and gentlemen, sorrywatch.com analyzes apologies in the news media, history, and literature. They condemn the bad and exalt the good. This website exists. It is sorrywatch.com. Sorry Watch takes apart apologies of all sorts. We praise the good ones and discuss what makes them good, and fling metaphorical monkey poop at the bad ones, using savage words and holding them up to ridicule, all in a helpful spirit. We examine the research on apology, discuss important historical apologies, and take on apologies in pop culture. We welcome your apology-related pointers, questions, dilemmas, and suggestions for shaming. Now, this picture that I'm looking at here, it doesn't have to be this convoluted. This is called The Paths of Apology and Forgiveness by Leland R. Beaumont. This looks like some weird kind of org chart that is out of control. Look at the different arrows and nodes and everything like that. Apologies don't have to be that complicated. They really are not. Apologies are just a matter of, like we were saying before, when we were asking, what does the mob want? What does cancel culture want you to do? Basically, what they want you to do is acknowledge that you did something wrong. They want you to have a remorseful apology, acknowledging that behavior, um, expressing that remorse and apology. Hey, Troy, today's topic is cancel culture. We're a ways in, but of course we are always available for the replay. And for anybody listening to the replay, welcome or welcome back. We appreciate the view. We want someone to take away their power and call out the individual for being problematic in a situation. Right, Sherry. So, I mean, it's exhausting and it can be tiring, but the whole point is that we would want that grace shown to us. And we would want that type of grace expressed to us. Compassion, empathy, sympathy. Those are not failings. It is not weak to have those things and express those things for other adults. Now, the type of apologies that come, we've seen many of the good ones and the bad ones. Now, I'm a Libra, so I can I can attest to the idea that this meme is putting out there. This is how Libras apologize. I'm sorry that you misunderstood everything I said and got all sensitive about it. Like that is definitely me. With my friends. If I'm me, if I'm saying I'm sorry, I mean it. I'm that person. If I said it, I meant it, and I meant the way I said it. So that is not how we should be apologizing. How else should we be apologizing, though? We should be looking at definitely not, hitting up the apology bingo card, because when we see all these PR apologies come out these days, we can detect those a mile away. I mean, the bingo card has them all on here. That's not me. Those I offended. Let's see, deeply regret, out of context. Oh my goodness. Mistakes were made. Oh yeah, my record shows. Lynch mob, because anybody who, refutes you is part of the lynch mob. Family, political correctness. That's another one on it's too PC. It's too PC. Oh, I'm sorry. Kindness is PC now. All right. What about my free speech? Oh, you're free to say anything, but you're not free from consequences, hon. Uh, and my favorite one is that's not me. Let me see what Troy is saying. If you do me dirty, okay, I get it. You hit a rough patch, but talk to me. Maybe I can assist. Yeah, and I mean, I think what people are saying is, if the person's come to you, if they're able to, and that's another thing. If this is on a personal level and the person's able to come to you and discuss it, or they feel like they've had that conversation with you before and they're tired of having the conversation and they just want to go and they want to ghost and they just want to get on with their lives, that's something different. But we usually, in the idea of a celebrity or an entity, a company or a political party or something, and they can't like directly reach you, this is how they exert their power. And then when the apologies come, they all seem to be on this bingo card. Like, you can mark it. My attackers, my sincere, all the facts. But that's not me is my favorite. Like, that's not me. That's not who I am. Like, yes, it is you. We saw you. We synced you. We heard you say it. That is you. So absolutely, we're discussing cancel culture tonight on Hiphopcitizen live stream Sunday special report. There's still time for you to call in and join the discussion. I know we have a few people joining us on Twitch and YouTube and Facebook, so we hope that you guys have something to contribute. You can speak to me as well. But I love that bingo card. I mean, that's a funny one, because I'm just like, it does feel like those are the type of apologies we get these days. But the next one I want to look at is really simple. It's a 4-step apology. And I liked this. It was from the Gottman Institute. And all you have to do is apologize. I am sorry. Then you take responsibility. You say, that I. How are you going to resolve this? I will. And then you ask for forgiveness. Will you forgive me? Simple. You don't throw little snide remarks in. You don't say things like, I'm sorry if you. You don't say like, I'm sorry you think. No, it's really this simple. I am sorry that I hurt you. I will behave differently in the future. Will you forgive me? Really is that simple. But for some reason, these PR places are working overtime getting their money, making it a lot more convoluted and complicated than it has to be. And that's why nobody thinks any apologies are sincere anymore. And it's tough, because there are some people who are genuinely sorry. They're not being disingenuous, and they do want to exact change. But I guess we just are going to have to stick to people in our lives so we can see them and we can deal with them directly and understand what changes they can make that we can see. Now we want to get into the idea of how it affects the hip hop community, because this is going to be the fun part. We'll get into a little news and gossip about it, because a lot of the time when it comes to cancellation, and especially on social media, a lot of it is what I call beefing by proxy. Now, in my estimation, hip hop just tends to ignore you. Like, I don't see where before, like I said, the advent of social media or any time before this, like the golden age, like if somebody didn't want to deal with you, they just didn't deal with you. Like, they just ignored you. Or maybe you heard a rumor, or they told Sister to Sister magazine that they didn't fuck with you anymore. Like, they did not go out of their way to announce that you were canceled, or that they were canceling somebody, or they were officially beefing with somebody, or fighting back and forth on Twitter. Like, that's not how that went. Like, adults talk to each other. Doesn't everybody have everybody's phone number? They know how to get a hold of their people and everything. So it's actually image 18. So, I mean, something like that really irks me, because I'm just like, when did it become okay to start beefing by proxy? Like all of a sudden, all your fans are running back and forth. And we're going to talk about fandoms in a second. But see, it's that kind of you're either with us or against us type thinking that gets a lot of things stirred up. And a lot of the mobs are stirred up by misunderstandings. You interpreted it wrong, or what you thought was said or done, or you heard, or she may have meant. Speculation. That's all that is. It's not even a good guess. It's not even conjecture, an educated guess. You're just, really trying to figure it out. And people are afraid to either like take a stand, or they either want to take a stand against cancel culture, or they want to bend the knee to avoid being canceled. And that's what this cartoon looks like. It's funny. It's like he's trying to pick a button and he doesn't know which button to pick, because you don't know what's going to happen to you either way. Either way, you could end up tarred and feathered, and you just don't know. Let me also put these definitions out here, because I even had to like review it for myself. So the difference between imply and infer. So we imply something when we say something. We're like, basically we're trying to be slick. So that's when we imply something. We infer something from what somebody else said. Okay, so the difference between those two words is that a speaker can imply, but only a listener can infer. And I got that from dictionary.cambridge.org, if you want to look it up and verify where I got that from. But it makes perfect sense. That's the simplest way to put it. When you're implying something, it's because you're saying it. If you infer something, or you try, like basically you trying to figure out what somebody said, that's because you're listening to it and trying to interpret it or figure it out. And that's where the misunderstandings come from. That's where the speculation, conjecture, all that assumptions comes from. You trying to figure it out instead of just listening to what they actually said, like the words that were coming out of their mouth. Because I'm definitely that type of person. If I'm going to say it, if I'm going to talk shit, I'm going to talk shit to you. And whatever somebody says behind my back is none of my business. I don't have time. I don't have the brain cells left, getting up here in age, to worry about what you said the other day about me. If you don't say it to my face, I'm not worried about it. And vice versa. And I'm the type of person that is a 10 toes down kind of person. Like, I said what I said, and I meant what I said when I said it. It really is that simple. I think it is, but apparently it's not these days. Thank goodness social media wasn't around when I was younger myself. Now, this is where it gets down to. Most of the time, it's these fandoms fighting. I can't recall any time that somebody has really gotten on the gram or gotten on social media and specifically said, I am now fighting with this person because I feel like fighting with this person. Now, of course, here lately, I guess nobody's got anything better to do but fight with each other. But usually it's the fans fighting. And then the artists are not worried about it until they catch wind of something. The fans are running back to tell them, and then we're off to the races. The blogs have got something to talk about for days, including me. It's a mess, but we're here for it. Like, my thing is, though, if you're my friend, if you're my fan, if you're my supporter, why are you running to tell me something negative that somebody else said about me? And I'm like that with friends, too. I'm like, if you have that one friend that's always running back to tell you what somebody else said, well, she said, and then I'm like, okay, but what did you say? What did you say to defend me? Like, don't worry about what she said about me. What did you say about me for me? You were there. I didn't hear it. I'm dependent on you. That's hearsay. So yeah, you really need to look at that if you have somebody like that around you. Like, why are they always like gleefully bringing you bad news? So that's how I look at the fans too. I'm like, if you supposedly love me, if this is something we're doing together and you're supporting me, why are you always running to tell me, well, and I'm going to get into the fans. Well, Cardi said that you were this, and then Nicki said that you ain't shit, and did. How about you just worry about streaming my music? How about you just worry about buying a ticket to my next movie? Why are you worried about telling me that somebody said in Japan that my ankles were too thick? I'm like, what? Like, how is that supportive? How is that loving? How is that feeding me anything? Like, exactly, Sherry. Like, did you have the courage to check them in that moment, or were you just like jotting things down in your mind to run back and tell me? Were you co-signing while you were listening? Oh, well, I didn't want to be messy, girl. I didn't want to get into it. Oh, okay, but you wanted to run back and tell me. Oh, okay. Oh, all right. So that's where these fandoms come in. Do they need fans to fight their battles when it comes to these artists? Like, most of the time with hip hop artists, R&B, anything else, like, we will get down on our own. Like, we don't need the fans to jump in it. But for some reason, on social media and everything else, fans like it's act like it's their job. Like they are getting a check for like scouring the internet for any possible, aside or perceived slight made against their favorite person. I mean, the fandoms are like the Hotties and the Barbs, Barty Gang, the Beehive, the Swifties. I mean, look, I heard this quote once on The Handmaid's Tale, and it said, if you didn't want us to become an army, you never should have given us a uniform. If you don't want this to become a problem, don't let them name themselves. Like, if you get famous, don't name them. Because once you name them, you have to accept them and keep them. They're like a puppy. Now, I call our fans the usual suspects, but that's because I usually know that there's like 5 of y'all in here that always show up. But it's dangerous when you get to that point. And I know probably every one of these people that I just named gonna try to come for me with, bees and unicorns and that whatever else their emoji is. That's fine. I'm grown. But here's this image that we're looking at here. Now, this is the last time where I really think a fandom got dangerous. And it's, hey, Micah. So this little time, I think it really got dangerous. And I want to bring up this article because this is about when the time that Beyonce was at a basketball game. It's that they are not woke, so to speak. Yeah, I mean, they are making time to get into these issues. And I want to look at it specifically because Beyonce was at this basketball game, of course, courtside. And I already have a thing about celebrities being courtside. It's like, how come the people who are the real fans can't be courtside? They want to get sweated on. Y'all want to sit there and look cute. But that's just me. Beyonce was at this game, and I think this is this Golden State? She was at a game sitting next to the owner and his wife. Now, I remember this from the article. The wife's name is Nicole Curran. And of course, she's with Jay, and they're courtside. So the way you see this set up is how it was that night. Okay, so keep this in mind. So Beyonce's sitting there, and apparently she can be very standoffish. She doesn't like people touching her in her space. That's fine. She's human. I'm sure, that's just how she is. But that doesn't mean that she's upset or mad. And even if she was, so what? She's probably keeping, she has some decorum. She's going to keep that to herself. The girl could have bad breath. I don't know. So Nicole leaned across Beyonce to ask Jay-Z a question. And what the scuttlebutt was when she was trying to take his drink order to give to the waitresses. They have waitresses courtside that come to you directly and go get you your snacks and things. So she was asking him, oh, what do you want her to go get you? Do you want a pretzel? You want Sam Adams? I don't know. So she leaned across Beyonce, and Beyonce kind of leaned back in the video. There's video of it too. So Beyonce kind of leaned back so that she could directly talk to Jay. And Jay was like, oh, okay, thanks. I'll take a hot dog and 2 things of French fries and a corn dog and some popcorn, and I will have a Diet Coke. It was that simple. Is this Golden State? This is Golden State. So they were at Golden State Warriors game. And this was June 5th, 2019. So she leaned over her to talk to her. And this is after, Jay and Bey had just done the On the Run tour. They were recovering from their marriage being and all this kind of thing. So the Beehive was extra sensitive, I guess. And these people ran this woman into the ground when they saw this brief picture of this woman who was the owner's wife leaning over. And she even says that she wanted to know if they wanted a drink. There was no hostility. She was not trying to hit on him, any of that stuff. This woman had to disable her Instagram account after she received death threats, purportedly from the Beehive, who bombarded Curran with their bee emojis. Before she disabled her account, Curran replied to a commenter on Instagram that she's a happily married woman and that she did not think Beyonce would support her devotees sending death threats. Death threats because this woman leaned across Beyonce to ask Jay-Z a question. And the Beehive interpreted that as some kind of slight disrespect. She was trying to hit on Jay. How dare you? I remember that being covered by the blogs. There were absolutely tweets and death threats because, honey, screenshots are a thing where people were like, don't you ever disrespect the queen. You don't come into her space. How dare you talk to the king without the queen's permission? And then I was like, what? Why is she special? We are all celebrities. I mean, her talent makes her exceptional. That's why there are celebrities and that's why there are musicians and artists. because they're doing something we all can't to some degree. But you, this is a wife and mother. People were telling her that they knew where her kids went to school. They said they were going to find out where she lived. And trust me, weaponized anger like this will turn that into a situation like that, because I've read countless other articles about that happening to even ordinary people. The gamer community, Gamergate, when that happened, and the focus was on women they felt were interfering in the gamer community. Oh yeah, there were women who did have people driving by their houses in the middle of the night with computer systems that could disable their Wi-Fi because they hacked the password. They had to leave their homes and stay other places for weeks because that's how seriously people will take this. But for the Beehive to do this, and now here's the other thing, you can't always control your fandom. You think that they're about you, but really they're about your aura, your celebrity, your cachet. They're about the fandom at that point, especially the Beehive. Because, and like I said, don't come for me. Because then what happened now, Beyonce doesn't always acknowledge them to a degree. Like she acknowledges their power, but she's kind of, scary of them too. Because then Beyonce's publicist, Yvette Noel Sure, posted a photo and she said, every single day, our love runs deep, but that love has to be given to every human. It will bring no joy to the person you love so much if you spew hate in her name. I remember when they responded, do you know the Beehive said, shut up until we hear from the Queen, you don't count, and we will continue to do what we do? Okay, okay. So now they're just out of control. They're like Frankenstein's monster. Like they just, are up and at it and doing their own thing. And, they are out of control. You can't do nothing about it. They will come together like Voltron and tear apart your whole life. Like they did this poor woman. And I bet you if she's even thought to get back on Instagram, there was somebody waiting in the bushes to tell her she was still wrong for doing what she was doing in this picture. I mean, this is what it comes to. This is what cancel culture is, the ugly side of. This is the ugly side of it. There is a difference between fans and supporters. Fans comes from the word fanatic. They crazy, y'all. I mean, they're out of control, devoted. And then here they come, not even willing to listen to the person they claim to live for because they are so devoted to fighting on that person's behalf. And like I said, they all have names. The Arianators for Ariana Grande, the Swifties for Taylor Swift, the Barbs are for Nicki, and the Barty Gang is for Cardi, and the Hotties are and Hot Boys are Meg the Stallion. And I'm just like, I don't have time. I'm tired. I think it's my age because I can't imagine like making that kind of time at this point in my life. When I was younger, oh yeah, I was all about the person I was into, but I'm glad social media wasn't around because I probably could have ended up being one of those obsessed people. Oh my goodness, it's scary to think. It's a slippery slope. Supporters are just your supporters. Like I said, at this age, I'm just like, oh, this is a bop. I'm going to put it on my phone, or I'm going to download it, or I'm going to make sure I give their video views. But you don't have to tell me every little thing you're doing. I'm not interested in what type of underwear you're wearing. I'm not going to watch your 6-hour live. Like, I'll support what you do. But you as a person, that's your life. That's your private life. Like, you can have it. I'm okay not knowing, how many times a day you change your newborn. Like, I guess there's no line anymore. There's really no line. And it gets to the point where now you are the property of the fandom. You are the property of the culture. And people are offended by any little thing. You can be canceled by them just as easily as they built you up because that's the power they think they have over you. Perfect example, two things that just happened recently. So Naya Rivera, rest her soul, when she was missing and people were grieving for her, there were members of the fandom for Glee. I don't know if they have a name. Gleeks? I don't know where that came from. They're Gleeks. They were offended that certain cast members were not expressing their remorse in a way that the fandom found acceptable. Unwrap that. The fandom was upset that the cast members of the show, which has been off the air for years, were not grieving enough for their taste when it came to Tanaya being missing. Now, years before that, what I remember happening was when James Avery, who played Uncle Phil, passed away, and people harassed Will Smith for not making a statement fast enough. Now, Alfonso Ribeiro and the young lady who played Hillary and Tatiana Ali, I think because maybe they were a little more internet savvy or they were a little more social media savvy, they jumped up and had a publicist make a statement for them, maybe, or they got on Twitter and sent out a quick note. But the thing was, Will was so distraught. He was trying to process his grief. He was trying to accept it within himself. Who knows what was going on in his mind? And yet, because a couple of days since the announcement had gone by, people were actually getting mad at him. Like, I remember seeing those messages. I remember seeing those threads. Like, well, how come he ain't said nothing yet? Oh, he got a lot of nerve not saying anything. Or, oh, he too busy to acknowledge Uncle Phil dying. That's something you shouldn't mess with. Don't mess with someone dealing with a grieving process. Don't mess with someone going through something personal or tragic or horrible. You have no right to that at all. No matter how many movie tickets you've bought, no matter how many downloads or streams you've done of their music, no matter how many pieces of their art you've bought, you don't have a right to that. Cancel culture or not, you don't get to cancel them because they didn't do something like that to your taste. That's not what cancel culture is for. But you know what? Let's go ahead and talk about what cancel culture is for. It is for chastising, and it is for dealing with people that have done something, like I said earlier, that is like societally unacceptable, morally wrong, or just hacky. So let's talk about who's been canceled lately. So Nick Cannon. Now, Nick Cannon, I guess you could say, was canceled in segments because first, people weren't taking Nick seriously for that whole interview that he did with Professor Griff because he was a little too eager. He was trying to go way off in left field. And then he was trying to, he was trying to say he said what he said and stand 10 toes down. But then when it started to hit his pockets, of course, because then people started canceling him. People came out and said, we don't appreciate this behavior. This statement he made is not acceptable to us. And then Viacom said, snap, you don't have to be on TV anymore. Oh, all of a sudden, that he was remorseful. That's not. Do we need to go back to the apology bingo card? This is not who I am. I sincerely apologize. Please accept this. I'll educate myself. I'll be better in the future. So then people got mad at him for apologizing to the people that asked for the apology. So then he was canceled for that. So that. So I'm indifferent to it, honestly, because I just thought that interview was silly. And he was just a little too eager beaver, and just the flow of the interview I didn't like, just from an objective standpoint. So I was indifferent to that whole thing, but it was definitely, of course, interesting to sit back and sip slow and watch and see what happened. As my favorite Lovely T likes to say, sip slow. Okay, Terry Crews. He has been canceled and kicked out and traded by the delegation, and security waiting for him at the door if he tries to hit the cookout up. But for some reason, as much as we try to cancel him, he keeps coming back. It makes my eye twitch. And I don't know if canceling will do any good because he doesn't care. And that's the other thing you have to keep in mind. That person has to want to understand why people are upset and try to fix it, not justify their own actions. They want to try to smooth things over. And Terry Crews has not shown an interest in smoothing things over. I don't care about the Don Lemon interview. I don't care about the tweets he keeps sending out. I wish somebody would change his Twitter password. Canceling him doesn't even make sense at this point because it wouldn't take. He wouldn't care. And that's somebody where you shouldn't waste your efforts or your time. No hashtags, no 12 tweet long threads. There's no point. Now this is stuff that is just recently happening that I thought was interesting. So Jess Hilaria, she's this Instagram comedian. I'm not really into her, but like I said, she's Insta famous, and a lot of people find her funny. So she was making fun of Megan Thee Stallion again after Megan came out and made a statement in her little purple wig and everything with the music playing in the background. She was crying. She was teary. She said, she was the only reason she was talking about it is because she felt she had, people forced her hand. And so she said, it's not fun. And once again, she said, it's not funny. What happened to me? I'm dealing with it. I've been through a lot. I'm only 25. Please leave me be. Well, right after that, Jess released something that she may have filmed beforehand where she was doing a parody of a true crime show based on what happened to Megan that night. And people dragged her and dragged her and dragged her. But they were really dragging her for was that underneath the description on Instagram. I don't know if it's still there. It might still be there. What did she call it? Murder mystery something? Media murder mystery. She put a disclaimer for entertainment purposes only. And everybody's like, bish, really? You thought that was going to absolve everything? You thought your little raggedy disclaimer was going to keep us from telling you that we're going to drag you by the 3 edges you got left? Uh-uh. So I think the dragging is still going on. I haven't checked to see if she's made any other statement. Last I checked, the video was still up there, and I don't think she's made an apology, but I'll get to that in a second as well. Now, this is cancel culture going on in real time. So last I checked, Beyonce dropped Black is King on Disney Streaming Plus. I haven't seen it. I'm sure I've seen clips. It's stunning, gorgeous colors, great locations, fabulous dances, a very great homage to African spirituality and culture, various parts of the continent she went to, and it really is like her love letter to African culture. Well, of course, because of that, she is getting like cancellations left and right. So the first cancellation I heard about was from white Twitter. White Twitter is trying to cancel her because trying to cancel Disney Plus and her because it's saying Black is King, and Black is King is racist. So they're canceling Disney Plus. Disney. Okay. So then the other backlash is coming from, once again, No Name the rapper. Don't know anything much from her. And she's upset that she believes that Beyonce is exploiting Africa and the idea of Africa for monetary gain and fetishizing the aesthetic. She must not know Beyonce very well because Beyonce's been all about Africa for a while now. Her reasoning is that because Beyonce always talks about being mixed with Creole and Native American and all this other stuff, why is she trying to claim Africa so hard? And again, I'm like, bish, we're all of African descent. If you see some of us over here, that's where we came from. So why are you trying to deny her efforts to learn more about Africa as a continent and the spirituality involved there and her homage to it? There are African people that are big up in her, and there are African people that have that same attitude. So, like I said, the cancellations are coming in fast and furious. And what does Beyonce remain? Unbothered. You aspire to be that level of unbothered. Now, the other cancel culture that's happening in real time. I don't know if you guys know this person. I know our co-host Don Juan was speaking about this in the chat. I really didn't have much to say about it until I really looked through what it was about. Is this guy JW Lucas, not to be confused with Joyner Lucas? I don't know who that is either. Apparently this guy has produced like Da Baby, Lil Uzi Vert, all the littles and the babies, right? And he is this, fully Caucasian person who is down. So of course he's got the cap, the baggy pants, and the shirts, the uniform. And he made a statement on Twitter where he said that he didn't understand why people were asking for justice for Breonna Taylor when her house was a known trap house and she had several drug dealer boyfriends. When you sign up for that life, you endure the consequences. So every social media outlet commenced to dragging him for the filth, the house down boots. And he would just let me tell you. So, of course, because he was being dragged, guys like that doubled down. And he said, well, I was just trying to say that, Breonna Taylor was being used for political gain, and this is political propaganda, and how do we know anything even like that happened? So Tamika Mallory, one of the co-founders of Until Freedom, regular community activist, a supporter of the Black Lives Matter movement, came out and she decided, you know what? You got the wrong one on the right day. And she went in. She went on several lives. She even talked to him at one point, but he was so busy talking over her and cussing her out that he didn't want to listen to what she had to say. So she had to go say her piece on another live. And people were telling her, no, fall back. Don't waste your time. Why are you bothering? And she's like, no, this time it makes sense to say something because this is somebody profiting off of Black talent and business, but then is coming into our spaces to tell us how to feel about something. And that's not okay. And then sure enough, another another article that he did with, I believe it was a podcast, the Producer's Grind podcast. I encourage you to go look at it for yourself, so you don't have to take my word for it. You can form your own opinion. All the clips, the Shade Room, everybody, the Neighborhood Talk, everybody's got those clips up now and have screenshotted the tweets. They are out there to tell you that, this is not, how it went. Everybody's trying to correct him. All the case information is out there. All he had to do was get on the Google, and he could have found out for himself. If there were trusted news sources that he wanted to go to, he could have found out. He could have gone to lawenforcementtoday.com if you want to get mad, but they would have detailed the case for him as well. And he would have found out that all his assumptions were based on completely factually incorrect information. Do you know what happened to Breonna Taylor? An ex-boyfriend of hers had once used her address to receive a package. To this day, no one has said what was in that package. She hadn't dated him in years. The boyfriend that the police were looking for was already in custody when they executed the no-knock warrant at her home, entered the domicile, and when the boyfriend and Breonna thought that they were being robbed and no one had answered their cries of "who is it?" the boyfriend shot. The police then filled the apartment with gunfire, and Breonna was struck. Bullets also went into the neighboring apartments. The no-knock warrant that was obtained by the officers on the scene contained incorrect information, and the judge signed off on it anyway. The judge has since said that they lied in order to get the warrant information from them. She had not dated several drug dealers, and her house was not a known trap house. And yet, this person with this large platform decided that he was going to take it upon himself to tell everybody that because she had been involved in that life, that you sign up for the consequences. So when what the internet does, they do, he was getting dragged left and right, and Tamika definitely went in. He decided that he was going to come out with his raggedy apologies. And the one thing that really upset me, it wasn't the raggedy apologies. It wasn't him trotting out Dr. Martin Luther King, their usual trope, talking about the, content of someone's character and not their skin color. Honey, even if we went off your character, you're a douche. What really upset me is that Breonna Taylor's sister had to take time out of her grief and her mourning and taking care of her mother to get in touch with this idiot and explain her sister's murder to him. Because he tweeted about it. He said, now that I've spoken with Breonna Taylor's sister and she's explained the case to me, I understand that I was incorrect. That if that's not privilege, I don't know what is. So instead of researching for yourself, instead of going off what you heard, instead of listening to the thousands of people that were trying to tell you that you were incorrect and doubling down and digging your heels in, it took the murder victim's family to come to you and tell you that you were wrong before you realized you were wrong. This is why cancel culture is a thing. Because it's swift and it's fast and it's efficient and people use it for things like this. But for people like this that are not interested, they don't care. They're going to live their life regardless. He's going to make his money. He's made his money off the baby and Lil Uzi Vert. Oh, they don't care. And he'll probably do this again. Because here's the other thing. Does it ever really stick? Are they ever really gone or forgotten? Like when you say you've canceled somebody, do you wipe your hands and say, we canceled them, good job, high five, high five, high five? Does it ever really stick? Do they ever really stay sorry? Do they ever really show any kind of remorse? Because here's the thing. If you're not sorry, don't bother apologizing. That also irks me to no end. If you're not sorry, don't apologize. Because that's better than a bad apology that we were talking about earlier with the bingo cards. That's worse than a bad apology, because we have heard plenty of bad apologies and that seemed insincere and disingenuous and forced. But if you said it, you meant it, and you may as well stand in it. That shows the public or your circle who you are, and they can either believe you and leave you alone, or they can try to work with you. But like I said, what did Maya Angelou say? The first time somebody shows you who they are, believe them. So now that this dude has shown his ass, I believe him. And I'm sorry, we've been having this discussion about there should be room for redemption, there should be room for growth and change. Someone who made a stupid tweet at 15, if by the time they're 23 they're a completely different person, they're advocating for the people they marginalized at one point, that's great. But for him to be a grown person and still say these things, then double down, then not ignore everybody, then cuss out the people who are trying to educate him, and then want to apologize, and then want to learn and grow and have redemption, I can't even give you the side eye because I'm not going to look at you. I'm just like, no, I'm good. But I'm the diva. These are my views, and that's me. What you decide to do with the information after someone has spoken to you and tried to figure it out, and you are making that decision within yourself, you have to go off the information that you have available and decide what you're going to do for yourself. But these are all the things that you should keep in mind. Ladies and gentlemen, I really wish you guys would call in and talk to me and let me know what you've been thinking. I've seen some comments come up across the board. I know Honeychild's been in the chat, Sherry, Troy, everybody else. Thank you so much for listening. Let's wrap this up and talk about this. There is no progress without the viable opportunity to earn forgiveness. I'm going to read this to you. Without it, sadly, very few people will be inspired to change. We have to reserve dire consequences for dire situations. Otherwise, all people and all movements will be dead in the water, and the water will turn grossly murky as we drown. Now, that is a statement from Donna Claire Chessman. She's a writer at the DJ Booth. Like I said, djbooth.net. It was an article about forgiving Brockhampton. That was the article she wrote, and I thought it was great. I'd love to get in touch with her and just give her like a big up for that, give her props, because that article had a lot of great points in it that I've used to in our discussion tonight. And maybe for myself, these are my thoughts, maybe call it what it is. Consequences of your actions. Why does it have to have a special name? Repercussions either. I don't know if it should stick around in its current form, because like we were saying that, the 5 reasons that people really like it, maybe it's too quick, maybe it's too efficient. People think it's clean and one and done, but it's messy and people tend to come back from it, and it doesn't always stick. People don't always mean it. And it's hard to tell if someone is genuinely changing and growing, because then after they do go through something, everybody's got a microscope on them, and any little infraction is going to be seen as backsliding. So when do they get a chance to really progress and grow? And for me, is there a way to reform cancel culture, refine it maybe? What people want is mindfulness and consideration. That's really what they're looking for. I don't think there's anything wrong with kindness shown. I don't think there's anything wrong with compassion or empathy. When you are saying things, tweeting things, posting things, even what I'm saying to you right now, 10 years from now, somebody could use it to be like, well, I don't like the way that your eyes keep blinking and you keep looking at your screen, so you're canceled. Okay. What can I do at that point? What can I really do? I don't know the answers. I don't have a solid answer. And there is power in admitting what we don't know. There is power in saying, I don't know. Because then you realize that you are open to learn. You are acknowledging that you're willing to learn something if you say you don't know. There's nothing wrong with that. We don't have to know. But here's the thing. We should be careful what we wish upon others. We don't know how it's going to come back to us. Or if what we wished upon them is going to come true. And then how are you really going to feel? Because it makes me think of August Ames and how people wished that she was taking pills or deading herself or something like that, and it came to pass. And then all of a sudden they were sorry, and there were prayer hands and rest in peace hashtags. And then it comes off disingenuous. One last thing I'm going to ask you to keep in mind is a quote from Carla Sosensko in defense of cancel culture. She mentioned, for me, canceling isn't about having an apocalyptic worldview. It's about the exact opposite, wishing that people were better, kinder, more empathetic, more empathic, compassionate, and good. It's about being able to look at myself in the mirror and feel okay about who and what I support. If you can do that after watching old episodes of Louie or enjoying a ride at SoulCycle, that's okay. Freedom of speech and choice still exists in this country for now, but I probably won't be joining you. And that's from the September 25th, 2019 issue of Well and Good magazine. Again, that's Carla Sosensky in Defense of Cancel Culture, Complications and All. It is very complicated. And I feel like the discussion is going to continue to be ongoing. There will be continue to be think pieces, discussions, videos trying to break it down, why it's important, why it doesn't exist, why we need it, why we don't need it. It may be here in a different name 5 years from now. But what we're really looking for is what she mentioned. What cancel culture really wants isn't even a malicious thing. What cancel culture wants is for somebody to just be better. Because when you know better, you do better. So we want people to know better and then do better. And that's essentially what they're trying to get them to do. The pushback against it, the people who stand 10 toes down, like the tweet that we had earlier in the show where he said, I'd rather, talk shit and never apologize because I'll never bow to the mob mentality. Maybe you need to see why there's a mob at your door. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Hiphopcitizen live stream. I'm the Diva, and these have been my views. Please direct all letters and concerns to no one. What we're gonna do is, are you are you offended that I'm eyeballing you? Am I canceled? Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us tonight on Hiphopcitizen live stream. This has been the Sunday Special Report with your hostess, Diva Views. You can catch me on Instagram at It's Diva Views and on Facebook, Diva Views Citizen. My profiles are pretty boring, but if you have any suggestions for sprucing them up, I will take them. You can join us Wednesday for David Simonism and his talk show. And of course, our cornerstone show is Friday Night Live, where we are on from 11 until we get sleepy, discussing hip hop news, birthdays, anniversaries, and usually artists and community activists. Guests. We had a great guest, Anthony D. Bryan from Chicago. What's Wallace saying here? The world is really sick of its inhabitants, especially human. We all need to do better for ourselves, love and support one another. That's true. I wish we had, more puppies and we weren't kicking them and throwing them off cliffs. Like, don't ask me where that came from. And I think the world would be a better place if you hop to what's right. I really hope you guys take something from the discussion. Share the stream if you care with people who you want to have the discussion with. If you're hitting us on the replay, thank you so much for sticking with us this long. We hope that you'll subscribe, like, and follow us. We are on Twitch, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. I believe we're on Periscope as well. Sign up on the page. Let us know what other topics that you'd like to see. If there's anything that you want to discuss. And guys, it was a call-in show. Like, you could have talked to me. You didn't have to listen to me ramble for this long. But I do want to say thank you so much for giving me the chance to talk to you tonight. We're going to be on a bit of a hiatus for the next week. I won't be here next Sunday. I'm taking a bit of time. And so you can always catch our archived shows of Sunday Special Report. We've discussed in the past media literacy. We've discussed Where's the Black Love. We've discussed Do All Black Lives Matter to All Black People in a 2-part series. So you can go back and check out those replays on YouTube and Facebook. Definitely support us on Cash App if you'd like to tip us at Hiphopcitizen. You can hit us there. And folks, we hope that you will continue to stick around as important Hiphopcitizen in our crew and enjoy the rest of your evening. We'll catch you on the next one. Bye.